All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Fit Fatherhood Podcast. I have a special guest with me, the Helo, what is it, Heloc or Helos? I always say Helo C, but like if I'm gonna say it like and it's a title, I gotta just say Heloc, right?
Heloc.
The Heloc hustler himself, Jamal
Yes,
J.F. Whitehead. The F is for finisher.
like that.
My man does everything. Real estate investor, flipper, reseller. He's in stocks and options, affiliate marketing. He can literally teach you how to find off-market properties. He has a course called REI Hacks that I'm sure we'll talk about. A man is an awesome dude. Welcomed me with wide open arms when I first got into the Twitterverse. When I got into that side of the Twitterverse, I should say, I was just messing around with it before. But I totally appreciate you for doing that, brother, and I'm excited to have you on the show. Thank you.
Hey man, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, is there anything I missed? Like I said, I know you're a man of many hats, a Renaissance man, so to speak. Is there anything else you got going on that I missed out on?
No, you hit on everything mostly. I mean, I do have 3 kids, so I know we on the
That
father on the podcast.
that
So.
100%. He's a father, right? A father and a husband. He wouldn't be on the podcast if he didn't check off that father box. So you got 3 kids, right? All boys, right?
3 boys, yep.
Yeah. How old are your boys?
I've got a 1-year-old, so he'll be 2 in September. Then I got a 5-year-old, he'll actually be 6 in October, and then my 8-year-old will be 9 in December. So
Wow.
going fast.
Yeah. I remember when I first got on Twitter, you was taking the little one in the stroller.
Exactly.
And I listened to podcasts or books on tape or something like that. Like I remember them days. That wasn't that long ago. It seemed like time flies, man. It's about to be 2.
Exactly. Now I'm chasing behind him. I wish I could get him a stroller now.
How is that with 3 boys? Because I only got the 2 girls. So
Man, it's funny. I have a friend. I actually got a couple friends of mine have like 5 kids. I'll say.
okay.
Like 6 of them. So they'd always be joking when I had the 2. They'd always be saying, when you and your wife having the 3rd one? I'd say, man, we're good with 2 boys. And they would all say, when you have your 3rd plus, it's not really. I mean, it's always going to be a difference, but it's not a bigger difference because your older kids can start to help out with your younger kids.
Gotcha.
So my 8-year-old certainly helps out a lot with our, 1 turning 2-year-old. And he even helps, with stuff for his middle, the middle son as well. So it's tough, but I mean, it's worth it. I think if you decide to have kids, I hope people realize the amount of time, effort, and work it takes. And if you do that, I mean, it's worth it. You should get into it. I don't know if I will have any more. I think
You're not trying to go for 6 too?
my wife wanted to have a girl, man. That's the only reason we tried to have a girl.
Yeah.
We had 2 boys. She wanted to try for a girl. I think when we had the 3rd boy, she gave up.
Yeah. She grossly outnumbered now. For me, it's the other way around, right? So it's me and my wife, obviously, my 2 daughters, and then my wife's sister is living with us as well. So she's only 22, so she's basically a kid. And so it's just me and the dog trying to make it. We the only guys in the crib, and we got to just go to the corner and find a spot sometimes, like get away from them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how's that, man?
It is interesting. I mean, my younger ones, my daughters are cool. They're 8 and 6, so it's not like
Okay.
they're not too crazy, right? Like they're just doing little kid stuff. Having my sister back is cool because she's like kind of that. She want to hang with us and she'll play with the girls, but she's old enough to do stuff with us. But she also don't want to do nothing with us because we're old, right? And so it's kind of that's an interesting dynamic to have. It's like she's too old for them and she's too young for us, and so she's right in the middle. So it keeps things exciting, man. It's always something going on. Like they just went to like an arts and crafts fair or something that the city was having. So this is the first time it's been quiet in the house all day. Like I gotta take that back. We had tennis practice this morning. So when we were going to tennis, it was probably quiet, but I wasn't here to enjoy it. And then we came back and it's been nonstop running around, playing. TV was on, radio was on, Alexa, play this. Like, it's been crazy in here all day.
That's how it is when you have kids. You just gotta be ready for that.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun though. Like, it's fun. It keeps you young, right? Like, I mean, I couldn't imagine being in here just me and my wife looking at each other all day.
My wife and I say that. My wife and I say that a lot to each other. Like, what would we be doing if we didn't have our kids? Because even though my oldest is 8, we've been together for going on 16 years, 17 years.
Okay.
But even so, it just seems like they've been around forever, and we can't imagine what we do without them. Even through the difficult time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Same thing here, man. We'll be talking about like we used to have free time before the kids, but then we used to talk about how busy we were. And now I'm like, we think about it like, what did we used to do? Like, I got off work at 2:30 because I was working to school. She was working to school. We got out of work at 2:30, 3 o'clock at the latest.
Yeah.
And what do we do all day? Like, we used to go to happy hour. Like, what were we doing, man? We're just wasting time. Like,
I was just about to say that, wasting time. It seems like
we could have been making things happen. We should be millionaires by now. All that free time we had, man. But
I was taking naps and doing all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. Right? Netflix wasn't around, but we was watching just random TV, like just stupid stuff. But yeah, having the kids definitely fills up your time, and so you definitely have to be intentional about everything that you do, especially with them, right? Being intentional with your kids and the time that you spend with them, but then everything else, right? Like with a guy like you that has several different businesses or several streams of income, how are you juggling, like, or not juggling? How are you managing all that?
So that's a good point. So that, having kids kind of helps you to prioritize. It kind of helps you with your planning, your scheduling, like all of that, because, if you want to be present with your kids and to also be able to go work and do things on your own, like, you have to manage your time accordingly. So for me, I'm not going to front. When we had our first son, it was really difficult because being a first-time parent, I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it actually turned out to be. So I remember I was working at my corporate job when we first had our first son, and I thought I would just be able to like work from home and watch my son, I guess, on the side. I don't know what it was. But I just remember like being in meetings, he would start crying, he would start screaming. He needed to be changed, like all kinds of things going on just out of my control, just natural things with a toddler, infant really. And, it just really, at that moment, I was like, all right, I really, like you said, you got to be intentional with your time. Like, when you lay out your schedule for the day, you don't really have any time or room for error. You don't have any time to blow it doing things that aren't going to be significant to what you're trying to accomplish. So it definitely makes it difficult, but I'd say for me, at least, it helped in a sense because it really made me focus and really made me pay more attention to those kind of things. And, I spend a lot of time with my kids just due to my wife's career. So, there are times where she's working or she has a private practice, like she has her own business. It's just like myself. So there are times like it's, where we're both spending time with them, where, you got to use your time wisely. I'd say that's the best thing. And if you don't, it's going to really be frustrating and you really won't be able to get what you need done.
Yeah. That's something that's really important to note, because I think as dudes, sometimes we just like to kind of just go, like, right, just kind of make it happen. Like, we just gonna figure it out in the moment, and sometimes we pride ourselves on our ability to just like move on the fly. But with kids, man, and with a family and just being responsible, like, you do definitely have to have some time management skills, right? Some at least some idea of time management, like, because there's always going to be something that goes on with a kid that's completely unexpected, like
them getting sick.
Yeah, like they just throw up randomly, or like, you know what I mean? Like when you got a baby, they just tear the diaper in half somehow. Like and it just throws off the whole plan you had. But because you have a plan, or at least you have an idea of what your routine is, everything else can kind of fall in line behind it, and you're not just kind of scrambling for things. And I think that's really important. And it has been for me, I know for sure. And it sounds like for you, having a plan, having a schedule, or at least having some idea time-wise.
I mean, I think for kids though, it's healthy to have like structure and a plan and a routine as well. I know for my boys, they're just like me and my brother were when we were little. So, and I think all boys are like that. They're just inquisitive. They're curious.
Yeah.
They don't sit still. They're always looking to get into things and try things out. So just having a routine, even for them, it helps. For us to be able to get things done, I know, like for my reselling stuff, like a lot of times I'll get my kids to help me with that. But there are times where I need to kind of lock in and get things taken care of while they may be around the house. So, they have little school and reading activities that I'll have them sit down and do while I'm doing that. And they just kind of know it's kind of like work time for daddy and themselves in a sense. And even that, just having some time carved out for them to focus on something, not be running around going crazy or making a bunch of noise, so I can in turn focus. I mean, that comes into that helps out significantly.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I feel that. I think when we first had like the shutdowns and all that stuff in the pandemic, we went from like being on this really tight. We were like, our schedules were crazy. I was still working, my wife was still working. My daughters obviously had school. They were both in soccer and softball at the same time. So we're like 2 practices a day if it wasn't a game day. It was crazy, right? It was crazy around here, but the schedule was like everything had to be perfect because we got this. If you mess up, like we're gonna miss something, right? Yeah. And then boom, all of a sudden the schedule is gone. Like there's no work, there's no school, there's no sports, and we're just in the house. And like after a week, they're going crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm going crazy, they're going crazy. We're trying to figure out what the heck to do, and then we're like, okay, let's put them on a schedule. Just like school, like let's set some times for this, and obviously give them some free time to play, right? Because it's hard to be like, you got to do just school all day, and their toys are like in the same room, like right next to them. That's a difficult task, right? It's hard to train a dog to sit still when you put food next to him, let alone a kid, right? And so once we did that, though, it was like they loved it. They were like, okay, what time? They're like down now. They're checking the time. Like,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, what time is it? Oh man, let me finish this up so I can go. Like they're all into it. And I'm like, dang, I'm thinking the whole time they just want freedom, but in reality, the time and the time management part of it gave them freedom, because during the time that they're playing, it was just play. Like they didn't have to worry about some other thing happening. Like when they're doing whatever task they had, whether it be reading or math or school or whatever, they were completely devoted to that one thing. And that translates hopefully through their whole life, right? They're present in the moment. Being present and mindful in what they do can translate to really anything.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie though, when we were home for that whole pandemic, I had all 3 of my kids in the house. And my wife and I were both working from home. But that was that was a difficult period, just because of, I guess my older son was doing like virtual school. But my middle son wasn't, he started kindergarten now. So
right,
he really didn't have any like formal thing going on. And then my youngest, we had taken him out of daycare when everything first went down, when everything closed down. So that was just difficult. Even scheduling and planning as best as I could, it was still time. There's certain times, especially when you have that was just a lesson I had to learn. There's certain times, especially when you have, I'd say until your child turns about 1 or maybe even 2, depending on how quickly they develop and like will actually start halfway listening to you. But you have to start working with them early. And you have to get to a point where you just accept the fact that you might not get your stuff accomplished. Because they're going to be the priority. So for me, that was initially I don't know, they say like you have come to Jesus moments. Like I really had to sit down and face that and realize like, look, as aspirational and as all entrepreneurial as you want to be and all the stuff you have going on, like your child comes first. So, and you hear all that stuff from like your parents, especially when you first have your first child, saying like how time flies and you need to enjoy these moments and, you only get it once. And most parents, we were, I don't say we were weird, but when we had our first child, we didn't want to put them in daycare or anything like that. So, we were watching them ourselves, which I don't know, man. That's one of the hardest jobs out there. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on, but you just have to accept that, man. Like that. For guys, I know a lot of guys are a breadwinner. They're always wheeling and dealing. But when we had our first child, like I left my job to stay home. Actually, I did that with the second. My wife did it with the first, and I did it with the second. And I remember when I did that, a bunch of my buddies were like, "Man, are you crazy? Like, the woman's supposed to be home, the guy's supposed to work." I'm like, "Yo, what difference?"
Right. Somebody got to be home.
Yeah. But a lot of guys, man, like I said, that's one of the. It's a rewarding job for you personally to get that experience. But I mean, you don't get paid. You're not getting thanked for it. I mean, your wife might thank you for it, but if she did it first, in my case, my wife watched. That was another thing I had to recognize. Like a lot of fathers, for whatever reason, aren't like the primary. And I don't even say you don't even necessarily be the primary like caregiver for your child. I don't want to say caregiver, but a lot of guys might not be the first in line when it comes to taking care of a baby, especially.
Right.
And I've got buddies from different cultures that, it's the way that they live. Like it's never them to be the problem, to be the primary, like the first in line to take care of the child. They go make the money and their wife takes care of the kids. So, in a certain extent, I think a lot of people just in the country just kind of adopt that mindset. Like the guy goes out and works and the woman stays home. So when we had our first child, that's what we did. And I remember coming home and my wife would be, just worn out, just exhausted. And it literally, I used to tell her, it feel like a wrestling match. Like I would walk in the house and she would just like tag me and she would just disappear. And I'd be sitting there with my baby. I'm like, yo, I just came from work. They like I was chilling all day. Like I just came from work. So, I would do it. I didn't have a problem with it because that was really my only time to spend with, because I'd be at work all day. But when we flip-flopped, I just remember having to like sit down with my wife one time and just apologize because I was like, the way I view what you did all day, sitting at home, I just always like, you're at home with a baby. Like, when they take a nap, you take a nap. Like, I don't really get how it's so difficult until I was in that boat myself. So even that experience just gave me a new appreciation of what it takes. But again, it just reminded me, like when we had the second one, I kind of went into it knowing like, you ain't gonna be able to do stocks and options all day because you got a newborn.
Right. Yeah, you'll miss it. You're gonna miss your entry and your exit.
And that was a difficult thing, like when the whole pandemic hit, that's when I really started learning more about options in particular.
Right.
And that was a frustrating thing with me because I'm learning it, somewhat getting good at it, and all these groups, we were talking about it, doing different things, and I'm like, I go change a diaper and I come back and I miss it. I'm like, yo, what?
Yeah. But I think you mentioned something earlier that makes even more sense there is like you just have to accept it. Like this is you have to prioritize it, right? Like it would have been dope to get into whatever option that would whatever stock move you were going to make at that time, but like the time that you got to spend with the kid is more valuable. Right. Like there's a dollar amount on that option, and there's not necessarily a dollar amount on changing that diaper, but the value, right? The value is still more. Right. And so that's a mind thing though, right? Like you have to kind of figure out like, and that's been tough. That's been tough for me because me and my wife really never worked the same schedule. Like I worked nights, she worked days. So we're like literally we're just crossing each other all day. So I'm with the kids in the daytime and then I'm gone at night. And then it got to a point where I was working days and nights. So I was not seeing them at all. And so like that, I totally get the tagging in and out and like, yo, you've been at home all day. Like, why are you so tired? Like, and then I had to do it. The same thing. And I was like, these kids are insane. Like, what's wrong with them? This is what you've been dealing with. And then at some point, like at the beginning, I kind of not resented her, but I was like, this is your fault that they're crazy like this, because you've been allowing this for the last year and you let them get crazy like this. Now I'm the bad guy because I'm telling them they can't do stuff and they're crying, talking about mommy would and mommy said. I'm like, man, this is all your fault. you should have snapped them in line so I could have just yeah. But again, that was something I had to get over as well, and just like, this is what it is. Let's make it happen. And like I said, the time value is huge, no matter what it is you're doing with the kid, right?
That's one thing I will say. Having our third child, my wife and I talk about all the time, because we were at points in time we were contemplating just being done with two,
right?
But in the midst, having the first child is kind of like you're learning everything on the go, on the fly. And the second one, being that we were having two at that point, it was like, okay, you take one, I'll take the other one. So we were still both occupied. But having the third one, I feel like we both have commented, like, we're both making sure, and we feel like we're more in these moments and like not letting distractions kind of play a part. Because, now with the third child, we kind of know, like, unless my freaking nature so happens we have a fourth one.
Right.
So we just try to kind of take the time and really appreciate all the steps. Whereas with the first one and with the second one, we were learning and everything was so much on the go.
Right.
I can't say that we always made it a point to do that. So, we are very appreciative at least now that we can get a point to do that. And as kids get older, I mean, it's really only, I'm not gonna say it's not difficult as they get older, because it's a different set of issues. Like, my dad is quick to point out to me, like, these issues you're dealing with now are nothing. Like, my dad's favorite thing to say is, the things your kids doing now can't land them in jail. So you don't need to
right.
About this one. This is nothing. So, it'll be a different set of stuff as they get older, but if you instill and, start putting in structure and setting the foundation, like we said early, hopefully that stuff will carry on as they get older.
Right.
But yeah, man, it's definitely a blessing to be able to watch these kids grow, man.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I've said several times before, and I'll say it again for people to listen to. Fatherhood is like, I felt like my purpose, like I've tried and done a bunch of different things career wise, and I wanted to do this and wanted to do that, and have, bounced around a little bit, not really bounced around, but like have dabbled in all of these ideas. And then that, I heard my wife was pregnant, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna be a dad. Like, whatever it takes, whatever I need to do to make sure that I can be a father and be present and I'm cool. Like, yeah, I like I said, I passed up on some really good opportunities. Had I not had kids, I probably would have still been involved with. But I don't even think about them anymore. Like, every once in a while I get because I was a strength coach with the Mets, and I was.
Yeah, you were big time.
I was fast tracked, right? Because I went from like rookie ball to AA, and then I was slated to go to AAA the year we found out that she was pregnant. And so and if looking back on it, the guy that was in AAA ended up quitting, right? So I was gonna be in AAA, and then the guy who was in the big league club got fired. The guy who replaced me in AAA ended up taking the big league job. So technically I would have been the big league guy. But like, only time I ever really think about it is if the Mets are on TV and I see one of the guys that I had, one of the guys that was, I was working with, or they send like a yearly like Christmas card package or something, you know what I mean? They send me something. I'm like, man, I don't even like this wine. Like, I'll take it, but I don't really like this wine. Man, stop sending me this stuff. Like, I'm over it. Like, let it go. Like, I appreciate it though. That's really cool. Like, that you guys still care 10 years later, but like, get it out of here, man. I feel like, I made the best decision that I could have possibly made at the time. Like, it's just my family is the most important thing in the world to me. And I'm super appreciative for all of the crazy moments and all of the good ones as well.
For
All right.
sure.
All right. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, right? We talked a little bit about stocks and options, and I know we kind of got into, I don't know if we got into it at the same time or like we were kind of learning at the same time, but you want to talk a little bit about your experience with options. Are you more into it now that things are a little more settled, or are you still kind of in and out when you see something?
I'm always watching.
Right.
I was investing in stocks for the longest time. So
Okay.
it's just the options that I really got more involved in.
Okay.
Around the same time, like what you're talking about. But that's one of those things where I kind of, like I do, like we're in the Wealth Squad, so I follow it and I'm active as I can be.
Right.
But my youngest just recently started his daycare, I guess 2 weeks ago now.
Okay.
So within these past 2 weeks, I've definitely been a lot more active, that I actually have the time to follow along with stuff.
Right.
But from I'm, because of my stock positions, like I'm always following the market.
Right.
That's one thing that, I'm grateful for, finding the money side of Twitter, because I've been investing since my first job, I would say like 2003, maybe.
Okay.
2004. Like, I've been buying stocks since then, but I was more on that, and this worked out for me because some stocks I bought and forgot about, and it actually went up crazily. But
yeah,
I just would buy stuff and just forget about it. I wasn't looking at it every day. Like I wasn't following the market. I didn't know any fundamentals, any technicals. Like I would just buy stuff I heard about and just let it sit. So just following it and being more active with it, paying attention to it.
right.
Like, I think I opened like 2 or 3 new brokerage accounts, like since we got on the side, some of them just 2 trade options.
Right.
So, I mean, that's been a blessing in itself, man. Just, I've heard Chris, I've heard him say a lot of times people feel like stocks are something either you have to like have studied to know them, or you have to have a whole lot of money to invest in them. And
Right.
having a whole lot of money, it isn't false. Like that certainly helps, but it just helped me to realign my mindset essentially, because I was like more like, well, I need to just wait till I amass a lump sum of money and then jump in the market. And then try to make these plays. But I've started with just modest amounts, and it's grown over time, just being smart and following the moves of different stocks. So that's been great, man. And seeing all the people who've taken advantage of it is really it's really motivating, man. It's crazy. I mean, if you're on Twitter, I mean, you see people talking about that all day and everything. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And for listeners who don't really know, like, okay, so stocks and options and all that. So you can invest in the stock market, like you could buy shares of companies, and just, hold it for the long term. And there's going to be like, stocks always only go up. That's not true, but traditionally the market is gaining somewhere between 7 and 10% a year. And that's the whole market, not individual stocks. But so you put some money in, and like you said, you forget it. Like we were doing the same thing. Me and my wife were doing the same thing. You put some money in and forgot like we had stuff, and then all of a sudden like, oh man, so-and-so company is okay, let's go check and see what. And that's kind of always how my thought process was on the stock market. Is like you just buy it and hold it, and you never do anything with it, because people in my community, my family, like nobody was talking about that,
Yeah, I was the only one that had stocks.
Only thing I've ever heard about was mutual funds. Like my dad used to tell me, put some money in a mutual fund, but they didn't give me no guidance on how to do it, what to do. Like, you know what I mean? He was just put some money in a mutual fund. So I was like, okay, went to the bank, threw some money in a mutual fund, right? But then you would hear people talk about like buy Apple or buy Google or buy these different things. And I'm like, okay, all right, fine. I'll buy a share. I'll buy a share, and then I didn't even know how to check it at that point. It was just put money in and walk away from it. And then I kind of got introduced to options over the course of the pandemic. And it was like, So with stocks, you do get a good return on your investment if you're invested in the right stock, but it happens over a longer period of time, right? So it's a long-term play. With options, it's like you could put your money in today and invest a smaller portion and watch that grow exponentially in like 2 weeks, right? Whereas the stock might only go up $1 or $2. Like if I bought a share and it goes up $2, yay, I made $2, right? But if I bought an option and it goes up $2, it could be like $2,000. Like you know what I mean? Like there's more risk, there's more reward, and it's a faster turnover on your money, either up or down, right? With investing in the actual common, it might be 10 years before you realize that type of gain. And so that's what's really appealing to people with I think anyway, over this last like year or so, where people really got into it. I think that's the appeal, right? Is everybody wants fast money, right? Fast money also, like as fast as it comes, it can go, right? So there's that part of it. But I think that's where it really caught fire, is people had time to sit and pay attention to the market, right? Like before, you really didn't have time or access like that, right? Like it took more to get a brokerage account. It cost you $7 to make a trade. Like it was, you know what I mean? Like you couldn't just get in and out for free and like, be in the stock market. And like literally right now, everybody's in the stock market. You can invest on Cash App. Like there's no excuse for you not to be invested in the stock market at this point, because you can go to the grocery store and instead of them giving you change, you can be like, yeah, let me get like a fractional share of Apple instead. Like it's just ridiculous how this is working at this point. But that wasn't always the case. You had to, like, I remember I couldn't even get fractional shares at one point. It was like I had to make sure that I had enough. It was like I literally, like people talk about don't buy Nike stock. It was like I really like them shoes, but the stock, dang, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to get them shoes if I buy the stock. I'm getting the shoes. Yeah, I'm getting the shoes. Like at this point, it's different, but back then it was like, yo, I'm not buying that. Get out of here. Get these fresh ones because the other ones got creased, and I'm gonna be cool. But yeah, so the stock market is a fun place. It's a fun world. You know what I really noticed, honestly? I mean, obviously the money is good and that's dope in being able to get it, but like the communities, right? The communities that surround the options is really dope. And like, because I'm paying attention to these companies, I know more about what's going on in the world. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're like, I wasn't watching the news. Like I had really no reason to watch it. I definitely wasn't on CNBC or, you know what I mean? I wasn't doing any of that stuff, but now I'm like into it. Like my wife came home and I'm watching like the ticker at the bottom. She's like, what are you watching? What are you doing? Who are you? Like, I just want to see what's happening. Like, I don't care what they're talking about. I just want to see the tickers at the bottom roll by, like see something moving, So I think it's been really exciting over the last year. And I think it's going to be really good for the next generation. Like, because like I said, my parents, they weren't in the stock market until recently, like, and I've had to pull them into it. And so they didn't have that to teach me, but now that I have it, I can teach, and I'm already teaching my kids. My kids have custodial accounts. They have a stockpile, which they can go on and pick stuff themselves. And it comes out of my account, but I tell them it's their account. They don't know. But they buy stuff that they like. Like, we went to Target the other day and my daughter's like, can I own Target? And I was like, yes. Heck yeah, let's go buy some Target. And Roblox came out. They were like, can I spend my birthday money on Roblox? And I'm thinking she's talking about the game. She wanted to buy the stock. I'm like, yeah. Wow. Like this is
impressive. They come and ask you to buy it.
I'm like, this is what we want to do, right? This is what we want to do. And so that's been really cool for me. The Wealth Squad, like I haven't been in the Wealth Squad really long, which is funny because I was obviously around when it started.
Mhm.
But I had bought I bought a membership, but I bought it for my niece because she was starting a cosmetic line. So I'm like, oh, get in
Yeah.
there. Like you'll learn a bunch of stuff. People can teach you stuff. And so I was just on the outside, like looking in kind of thing. And
Mm.
then in the last 2 months, I think I finally was like, you know what, I'm gonna get in there on my own and see what's going on. Cause I was in Charles Oglesby's group as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so like I was like, yeah, I don't need to be in another like, but the Wealth Squad is like 1,000 things happening at the same time. It's almost overwhelming how many things are happening at the same time. Like
Yeah.
the notifications are bananas. It's
When you
40.
first get in, you got to get your phone right with the notifications on your phone.
Yeah. The battery is shot.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But it's super like literally anything that you want to attempt to do in business
Mhm.
is there, right? Is
Mhm.
there. Um Speaking of that, so this week they actually had you on to do a real estate talk, and you got to talk about some of the things that you're doing, and talk about, like I mentioned earlier, REI hacks, and kind of give us a rundown of what that is, and what you're doing real estate wise as well.
Yeah. So from the investor side of real estate, I have the REI Hacks course that teaches people how to find off-market properties and so forth. So it's funny you mentioned how you just got Wealth Squad because I've probably been in a couple months now. But it's the same thing. Like I was around obviously from when you first started it. I didn't join it initially, but I knew several people who were in there. And I forget one I say friend, but it's someone I met on
Hmm.
the Twitter side. But she was like, "You really need to get in there for the real estate side." Because she's like, I really think you could network, and I really think you would like those channels specifically.
Hmm.
Um, and I already knew I wanted to tune into the stock and options channel. So once I got in there, it's like you said, man, like whether it's, and I don't even go into the flipping channels, just because I'm in so many other groups that pertain to that. But it's like you said, like every channel is so supportive and so helpful and what have you.
Right, right.
So anyway, so through going in there and just networking and helping people as best I can in the group, um, Ace had ended up reaching out, asking if I would mind getting on and talking about real estate and investing and the course and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually kind of good timing because I just had one of my mentees that just closed on a big deal out in Ohio that we pretty much did as a JV uh, through my mentorship group. So, like I told you, I help people to find the properties. But in addition to that, a lot of people, especially when they're first getting started out, they'll take the course and they can go through the guides and they can read everything. But, they need a little more. Some people need more one-on-one. I don't want to say like holding hand type of guidance, but some people need a little more guidance. Some people need someone to run questions by. Um, and some people do better, and I myself, like I do better visually. So if you show me how to do it one time, and I can make notes or what have you, and actually watch you, then I'll be good to do it, going forward kind of thing. So within the mentorship group, I offer whatever kind of level is required by the individual members. Um, so this one in particular just hit the ground rolling, man, and she found a great owner that owns properties all over the country, and we were able to close on that deal last week. It was 18 properties that she ended up putting in the package. Yeah, man, that was crazy. So I told her, I was like, I don't know, for your first time, I mean, that's kind of epic right there. I told her she should be extremely proud of that. But
Yeah.
you know, I've been doing that. I've been doing like the investment stuff since 2008. So it's and this wholesale stuff has become real popular as of late. And I think I mentioned it on the call the other day. Like I was involved in like wholesale type of deals before they even called it formally wholesale. So way back then, I would just find properties and give the information to my buddies, and if they closed on it, they would just pay me for it. Um, and that's real similar to what people are doing now with wholesale. So I have the REI Hacks course. I have the mentorship group where it actually teaches you how to find properties. But then I offer like free guides on funding that talks about unique or creative ways to invest in real estate without having money yourself. It's kind of
Yeah.
like going back to stocks, right? Like a lot of people think unless you have tons of money, I can't be a real estate investor. And it's like, that's actually furthest from the truth. But even if it comes to raising capital, there are a lot of things that you can do. Whether you go get like hard money or like the HELOC, for me, I talk about the HELOCs a lot. I talked to you about your, possibly getting the HELOC on your end. So
Right.
you can get private money. We talk about house hacking. There's a bunch of stuff I cover. And it's just ways that people might not initially think of to get started investing. And then I have a free wholesale guide too, which kind of touches on the basics of what wholesaling is and how to do it, how to get started. But they all naturally tie together, because it's all centered around real estate investing.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So if I'm if I'm if I'm trying to get into real estate investing, right? Like I'm brand new, don't have a lot of, I ain't got a lot of money, right? Like you've mentioned, most people are like, yo, I can't get into real estate because I don't have a lot of money. Like what would you suggest as a first? Should I wholesale and build up some capital and then get into investing into like flips, buy and hold? Like what would be your roadmap? And I'm assuming it's based on what you want to do at the end of it. But like, what would you suggest for somebody who's new, who's like, hey, J.F, like I want to get into real estate, man. What do you suggest?
So a lot of people start with wholesale because it doesn't require capital, at least on your behalf. And then they take the money from that and start doing it, on their own. But I always tell people, you really first have to decide what it is you want to do. Like there's some strategies. For me, when I go out about doing deals, I'll run them by every, if it's a fix and flip, if it's a buy and hold, if neither of those work and I have to wholesale it. I don't have as much experience in them, but I'm learning more about like doing Airbnbs and stuff because that's become a more popular, like short-term kind of rental option. Mm-hmm. But it really comes down to what you want to do. Like if you want to be, like, first off, do you want to be a landlord? Like if you don't want to ever deal with tenants, then buy and hold probably won't be a strategy that you want to utilize much. If you don't ever want to do fix and flips, like if you don't really want to get to construction and remodeling and renovations, then you probably don't want to do fix and flips. But not doing either or doesn't prevent you from investing in real estate at all. So, I kind of tell people, my first question is always going to be, do you own a property yourself first? And I kind of mentioned that on the call the other day. Like when I first got started, I was trying to get started buying like an investment property just to rent out. Mm-hmm. And all these guys that the company I worked at, I had a bunch of older guys who were, involved in real estate. So I took them out to lunch and I asked them all, how can I, what's the best way for me to get started in real estate? And they all asked me if I owned the property yet. And I told them no. And they were like, well, you need to buy a property first, live there, and then rent it out. And that'll become your first investment property. So, I kind of listened and I was like, all right, what other option can I have? I just want to go out and get tenants first. And they all like insisted, and they all told me the same thing. Like, you need to buy one, rent it out. Buy one, live there first, understand how the things work as far as like minor renovations for property, and just, learn a little bit about houses and properties and what it takes to fix them and what it costs to fix them and the different repairs and so forth, so that when you rent it out, you won't be new and oblivious to it all. And I did that, and I think for me that set me up for success because everything they told me pretty much came true. Like I did learn a lot about properties. I did learn a lot about remodeling and renovation costs and how much things cost and all that kind of stuff, how long things take. So when I turned around and rented the property out, none of that stuff was new to me, and nothing caught me off guard. So I don't know. I say to say, like, you really first just have to decide what type of strategy and what it is you want to do, and from there you can kind of go about it. A lot of people, it also depends where you live at. Like if you live in an area where you can get multifamily properties, for instance, and you're able to get a multifamily, and then, like I said, the house hacking situation where you rent out some of the units. If you're in a market that is, like I live in Northern Virginia, and multifamilies, like you'll be lucky if you find one for under $1 million, because it is real close to it. So right off top, like the price of entry to do that just eliminates a lot of investors. If you're not a big time player, you're not going to get any of those. But if you're in an area that's not, necessarily like that, where you can get those and live in one and rent it out, like that might be the best option to at least start with. And, when you're buying a property yourself to start with, you're not really coming out of pocket unless, aside from you getting like a FHA loan or conventional loan, or if you're in the military, or VA loan. So other than your mortgage payment, it's not like, you have to come up with this big outlet of money up front, outside of maybe your down payment.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking, right? Maybe not, let me say not me, but let's say someone is looking for, or looking at investment properties in Alabama, right? Like Birmingham, Alabama. So you talked about like multifamily in Northern Virginia. You're looking at $1 million plus, right? How many units are we talking about with that?
For those, probably 3 to 4.
Okay. So Birmingham, Alabama, right? I'm looking, someone's looking the other day, and there's a 60 unit property for 1.5. Like you can get 20 units for like anywhere between, depending on where you're at in town, 350 and 500. Now I'm like, Birmingham, Alabama is like, that's gotta be, so obviously I'm not moving to Birmingham, right? So FHA is out of the question, right? I couldn't talk my family into that even if I wanted to. They would have to like build Disneyland in Birmingham.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So, but like in that situation, I know you mentioned hard money and private lending. How does that work? Like, how does hard money and private lending work? Like, I have an idea, but like, what's the difference between why wouldn't somebody just go to the bank and get a loan?
Yeah. So a lot of cases, sometimes, when you're looking to get, if you're doing like a fix and flip, for instance, there can be situations, especially now with the pandemic. Like, I know a lot of banks have increased their requirements in terms of like the percentages, like they're willing to loan you and how much you have to put down. So a lot of them have raised the amounts that you have to put down, which makes sense. They don't want to be left upside down there either. But in most cases, people go to hard money when they need cash quick. So a bank, if you try to go get a loan from them through underwriting and everything, it could take you up to a month. And if they're busy, it could take you even longer.
Yeah, the property's gone by then.
Yeah, and whereas in hard money, you could typically get it in as early as a couple of days, like max 7 days, just depending on what hard money lender you're working with. But in most cases, hard money is just to get cash quick so you can close on the property and move on. And in most situations, when people utilize hard money, their strategy typically is to, whatever their strategy is, it typically in the buy and hold, because they're going to do whatever they have to do to sell it and pay the hard money back.
Okay.
And then go on. So a lot of times, like if you need $300,000 to buy a property, you want to close it 7 days, you go get the hard money loan, put $300,000 down, you fix it up, sell it for $500, you pay the $300 back plus point, like they're gonna charge you interest on it. But you'll pay them back and then you'll keep the difference and then you'll just do it again.
Okay.
But then in that case, you're never actually coming out of pocket with, your capital per se. And in those cases, they'll loan you the money. They might ask you for a percentage down, like maybe 10, 20,000. But if they're funding like if they're giving you 300,000, they only ask you for 20,000 down, and you're planning on being done with the property in 3 to 6 months anyway, like, that might be worth it for you.
Right. Okay.
Private money it's similar to hard money, but it's just not through a traditional lender. Like private money could be like your rich uncle or like, your parents, or like in my case, I used to do a lot of private money deals earlier because my mentor knew a bunch of developers and contractors and so forth. So if I ever had a deal, and most of the time, the private money deal kind of with them would be like, hey, I'll bring this deal to you, like break me off a percentage point of the profit when it's all said and done. And I never would put anything into it, but I would get a kickback when it was all done. And then they would utilize all their money. But in the more traditional sense, they would give me the money. Like you go to somebody and say, hey, I need 300,000. They say, all right, give me 5% back, whatever. And then you take that and then y'all work out terms. But in all of these cases, it's a quicker close and you just don't have to deal with the red tape that you got to go through with a traditional bank. And a lot of new, for a lot of new investors who've never done a project before, you can't really go to a bank because you don't have any history for them to, approve the loan for you. So that's why a lot of times they'll turn to private money or turn to hard money just for the flexibility and ease.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So with either one of those hard money or private loans, I think you might have said that the interest rate is higher on the hard money.
Yeah, typically.
Is that correct? So is that like is that the only downfall? Is that it's just a higher interest rate, or the terms similar in terms of like bank terms and
So the hard money typically has a shorter term associated with it too.
Okay.
So they'll want and they'll extend it, but then you'll end up paying more interest. See, it's in everybody's best interest to pay it off quicker, so you don't pay as much interest on it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they'll charge you. I mean, it can be significant, but with anything, you just have to shop it around because you can find more competitive rates. Because at this point, man, it's funny. There are a lot of private equity like lenders and hard money lenders. It's really more of them than there are deals. So, if you have the opportunity for them to invest in a deal that's actually legit where they can make some money, like they'll be knocking at your door. But that's it's hard to find those deals. You gotta know what
I was gonna say, yeah. So that's where you come in, right? Because like once I see it on Zillow, like it's already probably too high for me to be trying to get in as an investment property, right? And so if I'm a real estate investor, if I am a want to be real estate investor, I need to figure out how to get that property before it goes to a realtor. That's right? So
most cases, once a realtor's involved, realtor's goal is to sell it for the highest price possible so they can get the biggest commission, and, get their client the most money and get themselves the most money commission wise. And with an investor, we just have competing agendas because we want to get it for the cheapest price.
gotcha.
So I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I'd give it 80%. That's just being real conservative. 80% of the time is going to be a lost opportunity because once it hits the market with the realtor, they're not going to let it go for pennies. And
Gotcha.
That's kind of the opportunity missed out. So I tell people, you find way more success getting off-market properties. I have a lot of people reach out to me saying how they have leads and deals and so forth. And it'll be a bunch of addresses off Zillow. And I'm like, all of these properties are spoke. Like all these realtors already have these properties under control. So
Right.
they're not going to let someone like us come in and, underbid on it or anything like that. So most cases I found, those properties we just did, those 18 properties, like none of those were on the market. So you have to kind of, like you said, you got to get in before it gets to that point.
Okay. Now, so now without giving us all the hacks, right? You can maybe slide a couple hacks in there if you want to. How would I go about like finding those off-market deals? Like, is there a normal like process, or like I know there's like the driving for dollars, but like let's say I'm talking about I want to find properties in Birmingham because of the ones that I saw listed. I'm like, there's got to be other opportunities like that maybe haven't hit the market yet, going to be a better price point, but I can't drive for dollars out there, right? Like I can't, because I don't live out there, right? Like how am I investing out of state, but also finding off market deals? I can't put up signs. I can't, I can't do all that kind of stuff. What is my path to entry to get those properties?
Sure. So there's a couple of things you can do because now, they have apps for everything these days. But they also have they have data providers that essentially can pull numbers and addresses and emails and everything for pretty much any area in the country. So, like if you were looking at Birmingham, Alabama, their websites you could go into and filter down, like you can say like you want 15, you want owners that have owned the property for at least 15 years or more. Because in most of those cases, they're going to have high equity. And when they sell the property, in a high percentage of those situations, whatever they sell for, they're going to collect it all because they won't have a mortgage, or it'll be a very minimal mortgage. So they'll, in a motivational sense, you'll say they're more likely or more motivated to sell versus someone who still has a full mortgage and is nowhere near close paying their thing off. Okay. But you can filter it down to that. You can filter it down to absentee owners, non-owner occupied, or out-of-state owners. You can filter it down to vacants, pre-foreclosure, like whatever parameter you want. You can filter it down, and you can actually, and it's not that much. It doesn't cost that much either. But I say the $50, you can get 1,000 numbers, and you could target that exact area, and you'll get 1,000 names, numbers, and addresses, and you can just start reaching out to them. And yeah, you literally don't have to leave, your home state. And the only thing that I tell people that is helpful is when you're trying to do it virtually, it helps to have someone. A lot of people refer to it like boots on the ground. It helps to have someone in that area. Like that's how that Ohio deal works so well with me and Minty, because even though I was doing the negotiating and talking and handling the contracts and all that stuff, when it came to like going to the properties and taking videos, for instance, or taking photos, like she was able to go out and do that. And then she could like send them to me and I could send them to the respective buyers or what have you. So anything that needed to be done at the property, she was physically there to be able to handle that. So sometimes if you're in an area where you don't necessarily have that, it's still not impossible to find it, but it can be a little bit more difficult to do what you have to do. But I would say it's websites where you can find data providers, but then there are also apps like a real popular one is PropStream. And I don't know if you've ever tried that or if you're familiar with it.
I've heard of it. I haven't tried it. Like I'm crawling still,
Well, I tell people PropStream is expensive. It's $99 a month. So it's not something that I tell everybody to just jump out and just go get it off the gate. It's kind of one of those things where I tell people, like, if you're really serious about being an investor and you really want to stick with it, then by all means, feel free to invest in it. But I tell people they offer a free 7-day trial. So I tell people whenever you're ready and you're really serious, like don't just download the trial just to say you got it, because PropStream literally, when that 7 days ends, they try to charge your card, and if you don't let them do it, like you can't even get in the app anymore. Like they close the access. But the reason being because you can pull so much information in there. So anyway, I tell people download the app, go in there, whatever area you want, like you're saying Alabama, you can go in there and literally pull all those lists I just told you about for free. I mean, I guess it's not for free because they do charge a monthly fee, but at least under the free trial period.
Right.
And they'll only give you, within the app, they only give you the name and address for free, which you can then on your own get you can skip trace it on your own, or you can pay to have it skip trace to get the actual numbers. But even if you just get the name, like the Ohio deal we did, for instance, we had that conversation about downloading PropStream and utilizing it right away. So she pulled all these lists from Ohio. She didn't want to call them initially because she was new to it. She didn't feel comfortable, like calling. A lot of people don't feel comfortable calling when they first get started. So she sent them all mailers because she had the addresses and the names. And from one of the mailers, the guy responded and called her back. And like, that's how it started. So that was all from a free 7-day PropStream trial. Wow. And she just pulled all the lists in her area. Yeah, that's what. So I advise, like, a lot of people hit me up, like, I got PropStream, I'm thinking about getting it. I'm like, it's a great tool. Everything in PropStream you can find for free. It'll just take you longer. Like, PropStream has it all right there. But I just tell people, like, don't waste that free trial. Like, really make the most of it. And then, like in her case, like, by all means, it makes sense for her to get it now. She's, utilizing it. But you can get creative, man. I know people who split the fee 2 ways, 3 ways, like however you gotta do it. Like as long as you have access to it, do what you have to do. But I would say if you're doing something virtually, the best ways are like to either get a list because you're going to get actual legit contacts and get on PropStream.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that, man. Like I just talking about somebody else, not me. Right. Just a listener, right? The listener that's involved in real estate or trying to get involved in real estate might have those questions. And so, I just want to ask what they should do. All right. So one more thing I want to ask you about, like the flipping and reselling, right? Like that's something that I've seen tons of people doing. You get the ads every time you hop on YouTube. Somebody's telling you, go to so and so and go to Ross, buy the backpack for 13. Listen, you get them all the time, right. So how does that work? Like I normally skip the ad. Like I kind of know because I paid attention to enough guys that are doing it, and I know enough guys because of Twitter and other stuff that do it. But what exactly is that, and how does that work?
It's just really buying stuff from like retail stores essentially and just reselling it for more. So like again,
that sounds crazy to me. Like it was
when
it's
I
crazy.
explain some of the stuff I'm about to tell you will sound even crazy because a lot of people don't realize how crazy it is.
And maybe it's because I shop at just because of my upbringing, right? I shop at the discount store. So when the dude is in the video, he's like in one of these YouTube videos, and I saw one today when I was watching. I was looking at a video of Grant Cardone earlier.
Yep.
Right, and there's a dude in the video, and he's like, it's literally backpacks $13.99. And he looks it up. Amazon is $40.
Yep.
And I'm like, who is going on Amazon and buying this backpack for $40? Like, I don't like. I know it's $13 at Ross. Like, who is? What is wrong?
People, man, that's the thing, man. There's a lot of people in the country that either don't have Rosses where they're located, so they physically can't go get it from Ross, or just people have money, man. They don't care.
Man, I'll be mind blown every time I see them. Like, they'll post something, and I'm like, man, no way. And then they'll post like the receipts, and like people are buying it. I'm like, they just do specifically, and I don't, it's marketing, right? So there's always some gray area in the marketing, but it's like $10,000 of backpacks. I'm like, come on, man, what is happening here? What's really going on with these backpacks, man? But
yeah, that's how it goes, man. Some of these big players, man, it's all about inventory. So the more you can get and quicker you can sell it, I mean, the return, the ROI is crazy. But it's funny, like when the pandemic hit, like flipping, reselling, stock option, I was already doing the real estate stuff. So that wasn't anything new I was doing. Actually, like thinking about coaching and teaching people how to do it was definitely something new. But like the flipping and reselling the options were like the big things. And it's funny, like the flipping I really just got into because like back in the day, man, back in the day, it's funny because now everybody's like selling stuff on Alibaba. But back when I was in college, and this is before even anybody, everybody's like ordering stuff like their own products on Alibaba, having their own stuff. But I was ordering stuff on Alibaba way back in the day. So you can't even, I don't know, maybe you can still get the stuff, but I was getting like Jordans and purses, like all kinds of stuff Alibaba way back in the day. So I was like the little bootleg man.
Gotcha.
So anyway, I've always been in the position like finding stuff for cheap and reselling it, even before I knew about like getting on eBay and starting an Amazon store. So just through the people I saw online, I just started out initially first with eBay. And yeah, like people say that, like, how do you just go buy stuff at like Walmart and sell it for more on eBay or, sell it for more on Amazon? So I started on eBay with books. And I was literally getting books from like a local bookstore for 15 cents. And they were selling for like $20. And I'm like, same with you. Like, why would people pay $20 for a book I just paid 15 cents for?
Right.
But for whatever reason, people were, and they kept doing it. So I got to the point where I was like, I'm not so much worried about why they're doing it. It's just that they are, and I'm gonna keep supplying their demand. Like if they did, I was supplying. So through doing that, a couple of the guys who put me on the net were like, man, you're leaving money on the table by not selling on Amazon. And I was like, man, I heard a bunch of stories about Amazon. Amazon is it's a different animal. eBay is real simple. You can do it on your own. And Amazon, you can do your own, but you need a lot more tools and stuff to go with it. So the guys kept pushing me like, yo, you need to put some books on Amazon. So, it's a little more costly. Like I would find like $5 books and they would sell for like $75 on Amazon. And I'm like, yo, why is somebody paying $75 or something that costs $5? And then I just started joining more groups and networking with different people. And like literally, man, people are buying stuff off of Amazon and selling it on Amazon. You talk about like buying it from Ross or selling it. Like people
Yeah.
are, Amazon has like, they'll drop a product and it'll be like $9 for whatever reason. It'll be $9.99. Like Amazon is the seller. These guys will buy thousands of that item until Amazon literally sells out. And then it's nothing but the market sellers selling it from that point on. And they'll sell that $9.99 item for $49.99.
Oh, that's wild.
If Amazon never comes back to stock, that's, you know, and these dudes buy products like that. I mean, there's so many apps and tools now that can kind of assist with that. And they've got so many groups out to kind of, you know, like give you leads per se. But it's literally like that, man. You find stuff. Like I was buying socks. Like you talking about Ross, I was literally buying $2 socks. Soccer socks.
Wow.
Your shin guards.
Yeah.
Something like $20 on Amazon.
That's wild. I think your sound went out. I mean, I can hear you, but it's kind of like it's low. But I got you though. I heard you. $2 socks and they sell them on Amazon for like. Again, it sounds crazy, right? But people are making a living doing this thing, and so I'm always like, I should do this. Like I should get into this, right? It just sounds like it's a dope thing. What are like some of the, I guess the downsides to it? Because it sounds great, right? And not only like what are the downsides, like what is like the process to it? Are you just go find a deal, like you just out at Ross or wherever, and you find something that sounds like it's too good to be true? Or is there like a sourcing list, or is there like things that are, you know, a hot list of things that are coming out? You know what I mean? Like, are we just kind of going like school's coming back, got to buy backpacks, everybody's buying backpacks, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Or like my mom used to do, we used to buy summer clothes in the winter because they were cheaper, winter clothes in the summer, like that kind of thing.
And that seasonal stuff still is true. So that, to a certain extent, I still do that.
Okay.
You'll learn like little things like that, you know, like the kind of back to school items. I mean, sadly, like one of the biggest items during the pandemic, and I'm sure you see people post about it, is like the swimming pools.
Yeah.
And like everybody was flipping those, and that's really, I started around that time. And you know, being that everything was closed down, everybody was looking for a swimming pool for the summertime. And these people would just buy out all the inventory. And if you're the only one left with it, you can name your price. But I'm in several groups, kind of like how Wealth Squad, you know, they have groups dedicated to like reselling leads.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm in some groups like that. And then they also have, you know, like within the groups, man, you can buy software and tools and bots and stuff that'll go do all that stuff for you, man. A lot of the stuff you can really literally automate it to the point where you don't do anything but provide the funds.
Oh, wow.
They'll take care of everything on the back end for you, but you have to have a lot more money and capital for that. But the downside of it is just you have to follow the trends. And it's kind of like with the stock market. Like I bought things before that I didn't pay attention to the timeliness of how quick I needed to sell it. And some things are just really, you know, like some things are in demand for a short period of time. And like once it's over, it's over. And like the profit margin could literally disappear to the point where you're like just selling it to make money back. So that's one good thing about reselling. The community is so big. If you network and meet people, like you can kind of find people that'll be willing to take on your inventory. You know, like just because you can't sell it doesn't mean someone else can. So it's hard to necessarily lose money, but there are definitely situations where you can go into it thinking you're going to make X amount of profit. And just when it's all said and done, you'll just be happy to break even.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I started, everybody was talking about Legos. I can go downstairs. I got every Lego set I bought. I still have it. It's like literally thousands of dollars of Legos, and it's great. But what people didn't tell me was a lot of Legos don't go for those high, crazy prices until the sets retire, which can take years.
Yeah.
So if you get started, you don't want to have a bunch of inventory stuff you got to wait years to sell. Secondly, the Lego prices only go for crazy prices on Amazon. So when I first started, I was only on eBay. So I was buying all these sets trying to sell them on eBay, and I'm looking at the eBay prices like, yo, this isn't matching up to what y'all said I could sell it for.
Right.
Like, oh, Amazon. Then Amazon, you got to get ungated. Like you can't sell every brand. So it's like a process to go about getting ungated in certain brands, which takes time. So yeah, I like I said, I got all these Lego sets that will someday bring me some money. But
Yeah, for right now.
yeah, if you have a limited amount of capital to get started, you don't want to invest in things that you can't turn around quick. So like
Gotcha.
swimming pools were hot, like PS5s, Xboxes, all those new video game consoles. Those are things you're gonna sell it within a day. So it's been great, man. I really kind of tied into the kids, man. I really set this business up. I even have the shop named after my kids' first initials, my Amazon store. Like, I really wanted to be something that they take over. Like, I see a lot of guys. I was just rapping with a guy on Twitter earlier because he said he had his son doing some reselling stuff. I'm like, how old is your son? Because my oldest is 8, and I feel like he could be doing a lot more than what he's doing now. As far as,
Right.
but it's just a business. Like, as time grows and they come of age where they can actually take on more responsibility, they can just step into it and run it on their own. And I
Yeah.
can guide them and tell them what to buy, what have you. And it's not hard work. When I first started, I did like they call it retail arbitrage, is where you
Hmm.
go out and like physically go to the stores, and then online arbitrage is where you do the majority of it like online. So when I first started, I did probably 100% retail arbitrage, going out physically. Now I do 100% online. Like, I don't ever go to the store to buy anything. So
Okay.
just that, you know, it's just something sustainable that I can pass on to them where they can make money and grow into, you're right. People make hundreds of thousands, people make millions of dollars selling stuff online.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll necessarily take it to that level, but if they can just have something they can do and make some money and use that money to do other businesses and start other things that they want to get going on, and I'm more than happy to get that started for them.
Right. Okay. Okay. I mean, like I said, man, well, one, let me back up. My kids are like Lego masters.
No,
So I got to go look at your shop and see what you have
I
because
got a lot.
when I'm telling you, bro, like I'll send you a video of like the Lego masterpieces that we have in here. Like
Yeah.
the Lego Master season, whatever just came out and they like tried to binge watch it. We got Legoland season passes. We went to
Ah,
Florida, we went to Orlando and went to Legoland out. I mean, I'm serious. They're serious about Legos, right?
wow.
So I got to check out what you got. I'm pretty sure we spent money on every single Lego set. So, but just in case you have something we don't have, I gotta check out what you got, and surprise them with something they're not expecting. Um, but I was to say, one of the guests, I think it was on the second or third episode, was he does online arbitrage as well. And I don't know how much of it he's doing now. I know he had a couple of stores that he sold, but at one point I think he was telling me he was doing like 100K a month.
Yeah.
Like I was blown away, and he was like, I was buying drones, and like I'm like, what, bro? What, you were buying what and making how much? Like,
Yeah.
and then so after the episode, obviously I asked him to kind of show me some stuff. And he showed me some stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I need like a real sit. Like we gotta get like a real sit down. Like we gotta get in front of the computer together
Yeah.
and figure out how to do this, because he made it sound like it was so easy. And he sent me a video and he's like, this is all you do. And I got on the same website and I'm like, no way, man. This is not it's not that easy. Like, how did you find that for that price? And then he was like showing me something, and it was like, I want to say it was like $49, and it was like a Xbox headset or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And then he flipped over, like flipped the screen, went to Amazon, and it was like 149 or
Yeah.
179 or something. I'm like, who in their right mind is paying 179? Why aren't they Google searching it just like you just did and find,
People, people
like,
pay for convenience, man.
I'm like, what the heck? But he was like,
People
yeah,
want to
man.
be able to prime it. They want to order it and have it prime delivered, and they have the Amazon backend, so they feel safe about it. And you'd be surprised. I used to say the same exact stuff. Like, why are these people spending this much money? Like, I know this, but people do it all the time.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
buy a lot of. I just saw one the other day. The lady in Puerto Rico, of all places. Like, I had a Barbie doll. It's not a Barbie. It's I don't even watch the show. Zombies 2.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. My daughter's into it.
So it's one of the characters. Her name's Willa something. I don't even know her last name. But anyway, I think I paid $15.99 for it, and somebody bought it for $75.
So
I,
look,
I bought it off Amazon and sold it on Amazon. Like that, when I first learned that, I was blown away. I was like, I can't imagine. Like, why would Amazon even allow it?
yeah.
But that at the end of the day, Amazon don't care. They just there to make money. You want to buy all their stuff and then resell it, and they still get a cut off it both ways. They don't. It
Yeah.
all works in their favor.
Yeah. I seen what's the name? Josh Crisp, I think it is. He was talking about man, like a nail file or something, right? Like a nail file, he get it for like 20 something cent or something super cheap. They sell it for $2.99, but they're selling like 10,000 units a month. I'm like, what? Who's buying these nail files? Like, I just can't wrap
Everybody
my.
in the country.
I think that's the problem is I can't wrap my head around it. Like,
There's like billions of transactions on Amazon. Like
I know. I got to get out of my own way with it, right? And just dive in. And there's the same thing with stocks and options. It was the same thing. Like initially, it just did not make sense to me how I was gonna get a contract for 100 shares for 25 cents, but I can't get one share for 25. I like how I was like, what? No, what? Come on, man. Hold on. I must have missed something. Let me rewind this again. It's a scam. Somebody's scamming me. But man, there's so many opportunities now that I think people were exposed to because of the pandemic. There's so many opportunities to make money, and there's so many people that are making quiet money, like just doing like that. Like who would know that you were the nail file guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody like they ask you, what do you do?
People are doing automation though. Like they have software and tools that you literally. Like I have a guy now that I've been talking to. I might end up looking more into it because you essentially just give them the money, and the store runs on it. Like they'll use the software to identify. Like it's tools that just scan the internet for products and just compare them to Amazon prices. And when they see one like within a certain percentage to like give you a certain amount of profit, it'll just notify you. And if you set it up automatically, like it'll just buy it for you. And like your store will just work on the back end, and you don't have to do anything. We'll just collect the money every month.
See. Yeah, I like the sound of that. It's too good to be true though, right? Like, and it.
I can see how it works.
It's dope.
The only reason I see one of the guys who told me, he said his main clientele is like professional players, like NFL players, NBA players. They have the funds to put to those type of things. There ain't no rush for them. Right. But he said, man, it's like you said, they make like $100,000 a month. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. The dude I'm talking about who was in the episode, actually, he was an NFL player.
He might have had the automation thing then.
Yeah, but it's crazy. So there's so many opportunities out there, man. I hope that from this episode, guys are able to kind of grasp like there's a bunch of ways to and I think a lot like let's kind of tie it all together, like being able to be home and be present. And I know we talked about that earlier in the podcast, being able to be home and be present and still be able to get the bag, right, that everybody's chasing, right, and trying to get that wealth part of it, but being able to combine that without, not out in the world in the rat race from 9 to 5, working all day, and you come home and you're tired. You can't spend time with your kids because you only have time to eat, sleep, because you got to get back up and start all over again. There's ways to make a very good living and be present and available in your family. And we've mentioned several of them today, right? And hopefully, people can kind of grasp that and understand that it is definitely very possible to do the two things at the same time, right? I think there was a societal kind of idea that, like we mentioned, you talked a little bit about different cultures have a different thought process on men's roles and women's roles and things like that. But it's very possible to be home and be the primary caregiver, if you will, and still provide for the family like you would if you were going out, hunting and gathering, so to speak.
Right. It just takes discipline, man. A lot of people talk about that waking up 2 hours early kind of thing. And I know a lot of people might just think people are saying that to be funny, but I mean, even stuff like that, I mean, that helps tremendously. Just the one thing when you have kids, like your time kind of goes away. You know what I'm saying? Like it's their time, family time, and then whatever's left, you get the crumbs is left over. So
Right.
you got to make the most of the time you do have. And yeah, man, if you really are disciplined and hold yourself accountable, you know what I'm saying, it'll all work out. But you kind of like, I know a lot of guys, and I don't want to say they go into it intentionally being selfish, but you kind of, you got to be more selfless at the point when you start having children, man.
Right.
It's just going to be a struggle for you, especially if you want to be pregnant. Like, I'm, every fight, it's not only men, but some parents don't necessarily have the same desire to be as involved with their kids. So to each his own, but I think you and I are more on the same wavelength. Like if you want to actually be present and still make money, it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
You just gotta, you gotta use your time wisely and invest. I think the pandemic helped wake a lot of people up, man. Just being home and having an opportunity to actually see the stuff firsthand. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't say if I went home, I would have never started reselling. I would have never started trading options. I would have still been investing. I definitely would have been teaching people how to invest. So, those opportunities just opened up, and it ain't like my kids went anywhere. They were all sitting right here with me the whole time. So
Right.
I just had to buckle down. A lot of late night. I'm more of a night owl, so for me, I was more staying up later as opposed to waking up early. But my son was still waking up 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning every morning. My youngest. So regardless of how late I stayed up, I still had to be ready in the morning. So
Right.
man,
Yeah.
kids will mature you. They'll get you in gear real fast.
Right. Yeah, I agree. All right. So look, I don't want to hold you like forever, because I think we could talk forever, man. I think there's so much going on. Like we might have to get another episode in somewhere. But I do want to ask you two questions. These are kind of like the closing questions that I typically ask on the episode. And you've kind of given it already, but I just want to just kind of nail it down a little bit.
Okay.
So what does fatherhood mean to you?
That's a good question. Huh. I think that's the first time I've ever asked that question. What does fatherhood mean to, well, for me, I mean, in particular, I'd have to say I was fortunate to be able to have a good role model in my father, like being around with my brother and her. So for me, it just means, like, I know it might sound corny, but it just means being present for my children, like being around, taking care of them, being a provider for them, um, being a teacher to them. I mean, it really means just a lot of responsibility that I'm welcome to. But I don't know, man. It's a lot of feelings I can kind of describe from fatherhood, but it's for me. I take just a lot of pride in just actually being there to raise my kids. Like we both said, like we took time to actually be like the first, like the first in line with our kids.
Right.
And I don't feel like, I ain't gonna say I feel like, I mean, it's a known thing. Like a lot of men don't go through that.
Right.
I think for me, and I even told you, I had friends of mine be like, "You crazy, man? What's wrong with you?" Like even joking me to a certain extent. And it never, it won't like it was all playful, but it never deterred me or like made me think twice about it. I actually look forward to it, and when it's all said and done, like I said, the experience was great for me. So just that responsibility, knowing I got those three guys looking up to me, counting on me, depending on me. For me, like I say, it just like kind of lit a fire. I was already real entrepreneur and doing a bunch of things on my own, but it really just kind of kicked it into a second gear for me. Where now, like I really got to make some things happen. And more leading by example too. Like I don't want to be the parent that's like barking a bunch of orders, and then I go do the complete opposite of what I'm telling these guys. So, I think I take that responsibility seriously. So it's great, man. I think fatherhood is a lot of things. It's a lot of fun. I'll say that. You have these dull moments, no dull or quiet moments.
Yeah. We need that sometimes, right? We need that excitement and that life. Like, it keeps us young, right? It keeps us alive. So it's definitely necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So here's my final question. It's a 2-part one. I don't know what the traffic situation is like out there. I'm sure you've heard traffic out here is crazy in LA, right? Like, it's insane, right? So this is the billboard question, right? The 405 is one of the craziest freeways in Southern California. And so there's billboards along the 405. If you go to LA and like downtown Hollywood, there's billboards everywhere, like just next to a house, or like, it's billboards everywhere, right? So if you were to put up a billboard, 405, the traffic is stopped, but only cars on the road, everybody in the car is a dad. It's just dads on the road. What would that billboard say? What is your message to dads? What do you want them to know?
Damn, you asking some tough questions right now. What would I want dads to know? Because I have a couple of trying to think of something like I actually told one of my little nephews or something. Her cousins is about to have a kid. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I tell people. I remember when I first had my first son. I guess I would tell like my dad told me. He told me when I first had my first son. He said he took us, like when he was leaving to go to the hospital or whatever to have a kid. Mm-hmm. He took a step out to the house and like stopped and looked back in the house, and he said to himself like things were gonna never be the same, like as far as when it's just you and your wife, or you and your significant other, so you have a kid. So he was just like, you say that to yourself in your mind as you leave the house, and then like when you first see, like I don't know, when you first see your first child, it's like I don't know, it's almost like a surreal moment in a sense. And you just kind of like, wow, like like we created this kid. Like, right. Kind of crazy. So I just remember my dad told me that, and just how true it proved to be. Because everything does change once you have your first kid. So I just tell dad, just buckle up and enjoy the ride. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of bumps, but at the end of the day, you gotta be present and enjoy it, man. Like I even struggle with that from time to time now. My wife could be son or what have you, because like I said, it does get challenging the first year, but I can tell with just my kids and the ages they are now, man. I can remember when they were all just born. My kid's 8 now, so you gotta enjoy it while you can. Because soon they're gonna get to the point where we can all remember where you're too cool for you. You were just saying with your sister earlier, like you're too cool for your parents.
Right. Yeah. All right. So here's the second part to that question, right? Again, same freeway, same billboard, but this time there's only 3 cars on the road, right? Let's say 16 years down the line, 3 cars on the road, and it's just your sons. What do you want that billboard to say?
That's another tough one. Just my sons?
Yep. It's a message to them.
Man. Whew. What would I want my message to them to be? In 16 years?
Well, it could be now, right? I'm just saying your youngest saying he can't drive right now. So I'm trying to give him a car. I'm trying to put him in a whip right now.
I guess it might sound kind of cliche because everybody's talking about financial independence and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I was just talking to my children, I was talking to my boys about that in the car earlier today. Like I make it a point to, like my kids see me going to the post office a lot. They see me going to UPS a lot. They see me going to the bank a lot. So my middle son earlier today made a comment like, you going to the bank to get some money. And I'm like, yo, do you think everybody can just go to the bank and just take out money free, like at will? Or do you think, like, how do you think money gets in the bank for people to even be able to go get it? So then, he started talking about, oh, well, you sell stuff. And so we just, started having a conversation about business. And, my oldest son starts being like, well, is that why people work jobs? And we just started going through all these conversations about all that kind of stuff. And, for me, I want them to not only understand it, but like to believe that, like I said, I know it might sound cliche, but like they can do whatever they want to do. And, I think I'm hoping to be able to show them through the things that I'm doing that I'll leave to them. Like that's one of the real reasons I'm into real estate, because all these properties that I have, like I'm not gonna live forever. Like when I'm gone, like I'm leaving them to them. So, I just want them to know, like whatever it is you want to do, like if they're interested in a certain, like having a job isn't necessarily a bad thing. It was something that you really enjoy doing. Right. But I try to just reinforce to them, like, find things you really like to do. And, you're young, so you can work in the direction of doing that for a living, whatever it is. And I just feel like a lot of us, when we, my parents were both in the education field, they're both teachers. So I had a lot of that. It wasn't like I didn't think I could do it, but, like they weren't telling me I could do it, but the actual belief, the one thing that my parents were like telling me, like, oh, you can invest in stocks, and they were like showing me like their $1 million portfolio at the same time. But
right,
to tell me I can invest in stocks, well, have you ever bought a stock? No. All right.
right.
I'm gonna really make anything happen. But for me, like I took, like I have my, we talk about your daughters. I have my kids buying like Nintendo stock and stuff like that. So I just try to keep them informed as much as possible about everything going on, so that when the time comes when they're going to be out making money on their own, and they know they can do whatever it is they want, and they won't feel like they have to do something, just to put food on the table. And I think it, like you said, the next generation is coming up. I feel like, because I work with some real young people just getting into real estate, which is super impressive. Because I know in my teens, I wasn't thinking about real estate.
Right.
But I think a lot of these kids are starting all kinds of things at such a young age, man. And I think that belief is kind of, you got YouTube millionaire, like people can just do whatever with social media. It's just
right.
It's just allowed so many different opportunities. So, I think the younger generation is going to be so far ahead of where we were able to get, and that's encouraging, man. I really like that.
Yeah, I like that, man. To believe in himself, and because they could do anything. Like, I mean, and really, literally, honestly, like all of the stuff that we've seen, even in our lifetime, like that, like our parents didn't know that this stuff was possible. Like, you know what I mean? Like 15 years ago, maybe longer than 20 years ago, right? Like the people you wasn't texting, you weren't like, you know what I mean? You weren't able to do all these things that you're able to do. You weren't having video calls. That was like on Back to the Future. That wasn't a real thing.
Yeah, like this call right here. Yeah, we would never done this 20 years ago.
Right. Like just doesn't happen. And so all of the things that happen in our lifetime is just further proof that you can do anything. You just have to figure it out and be willing to work for it.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that, man.
A lot of people, I was myself, like when I was young, because my parents had the education background, I thought go to elementary, go to middle, go to high school, go to college, get a job, and retire. And like I really felt like, even when I graduated college, I thought I was going to get a job making a lot of money, and I was going to be set. And I didn't think I was going to really have to do anything else. And then when I got my first salary, I was like, wait, this is cool, but this ain't really what I thought I was going to get. Right. And then I quickly realized, like, oh, people making, like I said, those guys are my job. People making money in a massive wealth, not just from that one thing, not just from that one job. They're taking that money and investing it and doing other things. So, I quickly was intrigued by that and just started seeking out the knowledge. So yeah, man, I think it's best to just share it, pass it on. That's kind of why I started teaching real estate stuff, just so other people know it's possible. I wish when I started, I had some good mentors, but when I was making my calls, I ain't had nobody willing to call with me or to do it on a 3-way call with me, or like give me a guide on how to do it. A lot I just had to learn on my own.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and that's dope, man. And so here's what I want to do next before we get out of here. If people wanted to find you, where they could find you on social media or wherever, where would they be looking?
Oh, well, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Call Jamal REI on Twitter. On Instagram is J.F. I think it's J.F Whitehead. Or it might be J.F Whitehead.
Okay, okay,
And then I've got you can hit me up on my website. It's rei-hacks.com. But I'm pretty active on both social media platforms.
okay,
So
okay,
you can hit me up on there.
okay.
You can get in touch with me.
Perfect. I'll make sure to put it in the show notes, and I'll put the links to everything in there as well. So thank you, man. I really appreciate you being on here. We went long, man. There was so much stuff to talk about. Like
Hey, what time is it?
it's
Wow.
almost we almost 2 hours in, man. We really got into it. So
That's
yeah,
what's
I totally appreciate it, man. I know how valuable time is, and I know you got your kids and your family, and it's later there for you, and so I know that this is super important, and I appreciate you taking the time out to do this for me, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate the invite, man. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes out.
For sure. All right, so what I'll do is well, hold on. Let me end that.
All right.